Welcome to another inspiring edition of the Brandi Jo Show, your weekly dose of wealth and wisdom for a prosperous financial life. And here's your host, Brandi Jo Newman.
Day in San Jose, California.
Oh, wonderful. San Jose. Great town.
Never thought I would live in San Jose, but the grandkids just, you got to be closer to them.
You do. Are you not a Californian?
Moved here in I went to high school in Central California for 2 years and then moved here as an adult in 1970.
Okay, so you've been there a while. All right. Are you liking it?
Oh, yeah. You're in Texas, Brandi?
I'm in San Antonio, Texas. I say the
awesome.
only thing about California is that it's in California. I love California, but the politics, man. Oh my God. Y'all got some issues.
I have no way to explain what's going on as a therapist, a philosopher. It almost feels like on Star Trek when they get some invisible alien goes into their brains and changes everybody. And I'm sitting watching it going, wow, how could you possibly come up with that?
I say it's upside down world. We're living in upside down world.
Yeah. Alice in Wonderland, upside down world, indeed.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. Your emails are great and very well appreciated. A private conversation with money.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you first write this book?
I started about 4 years ago, and the first draft was pretty crude. It was written more like a movie script. And Scott Adams, the Dilbert cartoonist, gave it 2 thumbs down.
Oh.
So went through 3 major revisions.
Okay.
And it was out last year.
Okay. Well, as you know, and many people that are watching and listening know, I'm a big believer in relationship with money.
Excellent.
And I haven't had a chance to read the book, but in my personal experience, money comes and goes, some stay, and some money is used quite deliberately, and then other money is used for what I tend to call, and I had this conversation with Drew Walston, who is heading up Mighty Hero Homes. I want my money I don't want to hoard my money. I don't want to keep my money, but I want to experience my money, and I want my money to go be useful to other people. I tell people that I picked the right family to be born into. I've had a very blessed life, blessed upbringing. Never wanted for anything. When I decided that I was going to turn pro and go around the world and play golf for 10 years, I had no issues with that. No worries whatsoever. But many people today they're struggling. But the last interview that I had with Lisa Sakai, we talked about how people are not changing their lifestyle yet. They feel something that is going on, and they know that things are more expensive, and they feel inflation, but they haven't really changed their lifestyle, and they haven't made decisions to change anything about what it is that they're spending on. They're still, going to Europe. They're still playing golf. They're still, doing the things that they love to do. They're still making sure that their children are educated and having all the experience. So talking about today, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty of the book here in a minute. Talk about today. What can you share with people just in your experience? Because you're wise, you've been around.
I've been around. I'll go with that part of it.
And that's the thing, is that if we don't study history, if we don't listen to what people have already experienced, we're going to learn on our own terms. And, we want to share our experience so people can learn from us. So I mean, just with today, is this very similar to the 1970s inflationary crisis that we experienced? Or do you think it's different?
Well, when in the 70s, when interest rates were hitting 15 and more higher percent, it looked like the end of the world. And a short story, I was working for Merrill Lynch as a salesman in the commodities. I went next door to the bond department, and I said, how you guys doing? Because bonds had just collapsed.
Yeah.
And he says, we've gotten every one of our clients out of bonds. I went back to my desk and bought bond futures for my own account, because if Merrill Lynch, the last bastion, was out of bonds, I knew there was no sellers left. And sure enough, that was very near the bottom.
Yeah.
So if we look at today,
Mm-hmm.
gosh, if I look at the mistakes that I've made in the past. If you remember the silver debacle, if you remember gold, the whole inflationary thing and all the gold bugs, and we've come back, and that has all those worries have abated.
Yeah.
And I still look at the underlying foundational situation. And if you look at pension funds, many at least are underfunded. State, municipal, city pension funds are underfunded. If we look at, the debt, of course, we all know that, the debt is mathematically, it's almost impossible to repay. And we look at Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. And as a baby boomer, in fact, I was just working on a blog called Don't Be a Liability. And basically, those of us who are going to be liabilities, as the resources gets thinner and thinner, they're going to have to do some cutting somewhere. And what you mentioned about everyone seems to be just going on their lives. And is this like the Roadrunner and Coyote running over the cliff and just hasn't looked down yet?
Yeah. Yeah. So, you talk about being a liability. Just right now, I've seen this firsthand in my own family, witnessing it in my wife's family, couple of friends as well. Just poor planning, and with clients as well. I don't have anyone that's older than 67 in my book. They're still kicking and thriving, and they retired early. But just the planning aspect of the inevitable, that we are going to get to a point where we're in a no-go phase. There's the go, slow go, and no-go phase of, this new reality of retirement. And it's such a difficult conversation to have with people, because they have to look at their own mortality. And, that not only, they don't want to be a burden, but it just kind of happens that way. And it also has an impact on the rest of the family. I had a conversation the other day with a partner of mine, and how that poor planning or lack of planning, just to not even have, long-term care, or even thinking about the healthcare costs that are associated with the late stages of life, how they can drain so much from your personal economy and your financial assets,
sure.
that it actually pours over into, the family member who has taken on the advocacy role to make sure that they are cared for. Any advice on, starting that conversation, or how to start that conversation? I tell people to just write emails.
You tell people to.
I'm sorry.
You tell people to.
I tell people to write emails to the rest of the family. Say, look, this is what's going on. This is what is happening. Nobody really wants to talk about it, but we have to talk about it. It is super, super difficult to talk about. So if we just keep the emotions out of it and just look at it as what it is, we can we can position ourselves appropriately to where, nobody's put out and nobody's, at a loss and nobody gets their feelings hurt, kind of a thing. Have you experienced that in your career or with your
in my personal life?
I mean, you look to be
yes.
still kicking and still going at it. So I'm not going to ask you.
Well, I think personal experience is one way to share value. And so my wife and I are leaving for 4 weeks in Europe. And we realized that we haven't updated any of our estate planning.
Oh, wow.
And so I opened the book, and here was stuff from 10, 15 years ago that no longer applied. Corporations, I had, a company that was planning on going public, I looked at this and I'm wondering, my poor daughter, if we were to die tomorrow, oh my gosh. So we are now, the European trip is now cleaning that up. But also I have a spreadsheet. I look at, what is our current net worth. I've spread it out until ages 98, should we be that lucky. And what are we going to spend? And the challenge is because the foundation of our economic world is so thin that emotional contagion can change everything. Like, for example, if people believe inflation is going to come, they're going to start hoarding stuff and buying stuff, and that's going to produce inflation. If nobody's worried about it, we're all going to be productive if we have a confident future.
Yeah.
But that emotional contagion, I mean, look what happening in France. We're going to raise the retirement age. Well, if in fact we're looking at mathematically impossible to resolve all of the liabilities that we have, there's going to be some changes. And what if our younger generation, who hasn't been through a depression like my grandparents or my parents, who haven't been to a war like my parents, who haven't gone through that and had that kind of resilience, I think all bets are off in terms of it's not predictable. You just don't know where it's going to go. And so planning, you can make all the plans in the world. So what do you do? The typical thing, of course, and you would probably recommend this, is diversification. And I'm about as diversified as you can get, but nevertheless, it may not work.
Yes. And I love that phrase that you use, emotional contagion. I think it was shortly before COVID. It may have been 18, maybe 19, but I was at the driving range just down the road here. And I noticed it was a Wednesday afternoon, and there's a cute little market / gas station on the little road there. And I noticed that there was a huge line to get gas.
Oh,
and so, I mean, the tiny little road, this tiny little neighborhood, and there's hundreds of cars waiting to get gas. And I'm like, what's going on? So I take to Twitter, and supposedly we have run out of fuel in South Texas, and there was a run on gas for that entire weekend. We drove 50 miles to find gas that Sunday morning.
Wow.
And that was classic emotional contagion right there.
Oh, absolutely. Boy.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is a possibility. You talk about people not planning for their financial future because of the emotions and the avoidance of them.
Aspect. I mean, really, that's the most grinding part for what I see families go through, is that they have a hard time realizing that, this could be the last Father's Day or the last Mother's Day or the last Christmas and all that.
Yeah. When I go to the hardware store and they have, a bucket of 1,000 screws, and I need that size screw, or they have a bucket of 100 screws, I'm going, oh.
Is that the green banana decision?
Yeah.
My great uncle Jack, he used to always buy the most ripe bananas because he never knew. That's good. All right, so let's talk about the book, Experience the 10 Keys to Financial Freedom.
Yes, what drove me to this book was I see a huge cultural divide that has changed our attitude about money, wealth, success, and meaning. and I look at my kids and my growing grandkids, and then I look at the clients. I have my clients are professional traders, hedge fund managers, entrepreneurs, and the typical response is they will hit internal limits. They have conflicts inside of them about money, wealth, meaning. And it can come down to, if I look at a pyramid of beliefs and behaviors, rather, beliefs and identity, on any one of those levels, we can that drive behaviors that no longer serve us. And if it comes right down for some people to a core identity. And I have my own story about when I was a trader on the floor of the Pacific Exchange, that I had an internal limit of $200,000 a year. And I was woke up in the middle of the night with a voice that said, "Rich, you're only worth $200,000 a year." Long story short, I went to the floor, took the best spot in the pit, fought for that spot, and went on to make many times that. What was that about? Is that deep down, I had an identity that wasn't worthy of success. And that dream kind of woke me up. So with my clients, what we look for is what on the deepest level. Is it an identity level, a belief level, or just a behavioral level? Behavioral level is putting 10% of your income away for savings. A belief level is I don't believe that I believe that wealthy people are jerks, and therefore I don't want to become a jerk. Identity level issue is usually around worthiness. So my work is on what level are we working? And then I have a number of techniques and guided visualizations and processes that we use what we call the golden keys. First is awareness. We discover it, then we accept it. We don't judge ourselves for it. And the next is we develop a higher level of agency so we can actually make decisions about what we want for our future.
It comes down to the vibration or the energy that we have with the thing that we want most. And we have to align our beliefs with that. I know some people that, and I'll use an example of somebody being overweight, and they talk about being overweight, how miserable they are. And then they'll, call somebody who is not overweight, who's very fit, and they'll call them, a bad name. Or they'll say, that's just a skinny bitch over there. And it's like your energy and your vibration towards having a fit body is completely misaligned, and your brain will not allow you to do the things that you need to do in an orderly fashion to get what you want. And but I think it was Zig Ziglar who said it's right up there with oxygen. And money is not necessarily a bad thing. The love of money is an issue, but I believe that money is a tool, and the more money you have, the more tools you have, and the more people that you can help. And with your manifestation, well, do you call them manifestation or no? You just call them practices?
Well, for me, manifestation is a two-headed or two sides of the sword.
Okay.
On one hand, people go, "Oh, I really want that car or that mate or that house. I'm going to manifest it. I'm going to manifest it." Well, if that doesn't happen, then, I didn't manifest hard enough, or I didn't have enough belief. And then what that does is it negates, it produces a negative judgment about ourselves.
Right.
So
rather than we do enough.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So one of the things I do is I change money to certificates of appreciation.
Oh, okay.
So Brandi, let's say you do something for me, and I give you certificates of appreciation. You take the certificates of appreciation, you look at them and say, "Oh, Rich, I gave him value. And what did he do? He gave me appreciation in these certificates.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. So rather than manifesting an end goal,
Yeah.
let's manifest delivering value to others.
Yeah.
So if I don't know if you remember, but way back in the 70s, they had vision boards.
Yeah.
And you put the things that you want on the vision board.
Yeah.
So I have what we call a value board.
I love
And
that.
the value board is, what value can I deliver to others? And you start there at the end, say, what do I need to do that? Well, I need this skill, or I need this information, or I need to do these tasks, A, B, C, D, or I need to connect with these type of folks. Now, so your goal now is delivering value. And out of that, you receive certificates of appreciation. The value of this process is that as we grew up, some of us grew up with money, just easy come, easy go. Others, money is the root of all evil. Only rich people and jerks have money. We're really more authentic because we don't have money and we struggle. And we've internalized those struggles, all those conflicting beliefs. So if we step out of that and say, oh, money is a certificate of appreciation and delivering value, that those neural connections in our mind, we just skip right over them. And now we can, with meaning in our lives, we can say, one of the meanings of my life is to deliver value. Now, nevertheless, a mom loving their kids, no money involved, great value. Martin Luther King, great value. So there's probably 10 times as many ways to deliver value as there is just in terms of a commercial sense. But if we are in a commercial sense, then if the end goal is to deliver value to others, and this is what just explodes the brains.
Okay.
The more value, the more certificates of appreciation you have collected, the more value you've delivered to the world. Wow.
Very good. Powerful. Big impact.
That has, all of a sudden, that has released some of my clients from their self-made chains.
Mm. Can you talk about like a client in particular, like a case study, like what was their block, their drag?
Mm-hmm.
They knew they had potential, or they knew that they were destined for something, but they lacked kind of the catalyst to get there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. When I was building a trading firm, for example, I started hiring traders to trade my option methodology. That was, we didn't take big risks, just singles and doubles, and we were just consistently profitable. And about a third of them would just take off and start making money. A third of them would do okay, not great, but okay. But a third of them just couldn't do it. Smart, skillful, same markets, everything was the same, except something kept them down. So I brought in a hypnotherapist, and one of them, he grew up in dirt poverty in West Virginia. It was large families, Sunday church and barbecues, but they were just, dirt poor. There was no money around, but what they had was this huge family collective. And so when he came to the floor, really smart and started making money, and zeros appeared in his bank account, lots of zeros, all of a sudden there was this inner survival voice that said, you're going to lose your family. You're going to lose your connection. Because for them, being successful and wealthy it wasn't even in their context. It just was something way out there. So once we got that, then we could start to mitigate. Another trader grew up, and his younger brother was severely handicapped. So his mother paid all attention to the younger brother. If he made money, this is under hypnosis, he says, my mom's going to come to me to take care of my younger brother financially. And he was so resentful of the younger brother. How did he solve it? Easy, just not make money.
Yeah. Wow.
That's one client, an entrepreneur, had built a HVAC business, and built it precisely to sell to a national company. So he knew exactly what their parameters were, exactly what they needed. So he built a company to those terms so it would just fit into the national company. And when they were negotiating, he started to sabotage the negotiations. Oh my gosh. And so we started working on that. Where does that sabotage come from? And it turned out it came from a deep unworthiness. I'm really not worthy of all this money. So yeah, all these internal things, both the deepest identity, behaviors and beliefs, and even some just silly little things that got stuck in our brain from our growing up, can sometimes produce conflicts that change our lives.
Yeah. Powerful stuff, Richard. I just downloaded it on Audible. And it's 6.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Rated your own book?
I read it, yes.
How is that? I'm always curious how the authors will read the book.
Well,
and how you feel about, you're reading your own words, but I think like with some other books, like I just forgot his name. David Goggins.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
He read his book, and then in between some of the passages, he would get conversational with himself because it would remind him, of something happening. And so you got some bonus out of the Audible version. So you were in a booth and read it aloud. And did you have, while you're reading it, do you think, oh, this is going to be in the next version? Like these little stories that pop up in your head, or these little reminders that pop up in your head? Because there's so much, especially when you're writing all this down. I've attempted to write a book. And all the chapters, I think that this book is like 15 chapters now. And one of the people that I spoke with, I hired a person to coach me on it. And they said, you're not writing to any particular person. That's why you can't wrap it up. That's why you can't end it. So in your book, who is your perfect reader? Who are you writing for?
Yeah, this is a person who, you mentioned it earlier, whose goals in life are just out of sync with their behaviors. And so this is one where we have the cultural beliefs, because of the big cultural divide now around money, wealth. On one hand, we have the movie stars, and we just just love and adore people who are wealthy. And on the other hand, the wealthy people are making money off the backs of the poor people, and they're not paying their fair share of taxes and all that. So we have these tremendous conflicts. Then we talked about family conflicts, growing up, beliefs about money. So the book is aimed at people who know they are meant to be successful, and they have these internal conflicts and messages. And so the book takes us through every issue that I've had with my clients. And Joe, the protagonist, goes through each one, and each issue then has a corresponding exercise. And in fact, what I'm going to do, I'll give your readers a free access to the online course.
Okay.
So if they go to conversations.money/Brandi, Brandi, I will give them a coupon for a free access to the course, which goes through all the exercises he does. So this is a compression of all the clients, all the issues, and the major ones, and then taking people through them so they can experience them. So, rather than just reading a transformational or get better book or whatever it is, and you can read it, but you don't have to get involved. So this invites you to actually get involved with the main character and experience the exercises along with him. And that then allows you to take one step, another step, and another step, because we go down to the deepest issues.
I love it. I love it. Can we go back to the trader?
Mm-hmm.
In your methodology, I read all the Turtle Trader books. It's a blueprint for basically literally making money or taking money from other people, as one of my friends said it.
That's an interesting comment and a belief system.
Yeah.
Because that can sabotage you if you're a good person and have a good heart.
Well, and his position was it's a competition, especially, I mean, he's a trader.
Mhm.
It's a competition. I have to be positioned properly to capture the money that people are not holding on to. But in the methodology for your options trading, how many traders did you have?
Oh, at the peak, I had 8 traders.
8. Okay. And it was a third. A third took off.
Yeah.
A third were okay.
Yeah.
And a third were like, I really want to do this, but there's something wrong with me.
Yeah, and some of the traders came and went too, so
Yeah.
some of them didn't make it. Yeah.
So did they act as a team or were they individuals?
These are individuals standing in an individual pit, trading independently of everybody else. Now, we had group meetings to talk and work about things, but it's very much an individual thing, standing there. And you mentioned competition in a pit. And that is probably one of the rawest financial experiences you can have. It's competitive. It is a brutal system. Oh my gosh. There's fistfights that break out. It's I stepped into a new pit. I remember the Diamond Shamrock pit because there was something going on there. Started trading, and so one guy didn't want me there, and he'd put his nose about 2 inches from my nose and just scream at me for 5 minutes every morning before the bell rang. So you have to be able to handle that one way or the other.
Yeah. Well, I'm a competitive golfer.
Mhm.
And it was fun. Okay, so I'll tell you, and I always equate, of course, I always equate everything to golf. The self-sabotaging that goes on with the important things in your life and the things that
Mhm.
you believe that you value most, your brain will just go haywire. And people, when I was teaching golf, people would come to me and these are aspiring amateur players, nobody professional or anything like that, but they would say, how do I stop doing that, or how do I avoid this happening?
Mhm.
And my response was always, you can't stop whatever that is happening, but it's how you deal with it. And it's kind of that deer in headlight look where you're like, okay, it's coming, something's coming. But if you welcome the coming of, whatever is happening on the course or whatever is happening with your money, if you're just prepared, and, I like the fact that you have a routine and exercises and courses that we can go through to just have it be okay that, nothing bad really has to happen. It's the reaction to the happening, in my opinion. The biggest issue that most people have with money is that they think that once they get it, they have to turn it into something else. And they invite risk and uncertainty into their personal economies. And I'm like, if you don't have that personality, why take that chance? Have you ever run into that with?
Yeah, well, you've brought up a number of really important things. One of them on the golf course, you mentioned all the emotions that come up and self-sabotage. We look at that as our survival instincts. We have a survival brain in the lower part back down here. And our survival brain evolved on the savannas of Africa. And there it was, eat or be eaten, get your game or lose your game. And you're part of a tribe, and your connection to the tribe is part of your survival. So given that, and so if we look at then the cultural stuff that's been added around our family and upbringing, our survival brain is really in control. And you mentioned something important, is that you can't change the emotions, but you deal with them. So what we do is we recognize the survival brain. In fact, I'll have a conversation with it. And I'll say, for example, Brandi, I can see that when we talk about this, your lips get tight and you kind of go like this. What's going on? Oh, I don't know. Okay. May I have a conversation with that part of you? You say, okay. All right. So Brandi's part, I believe that you have a positive intent for her. You're there to help her survive. Is that right? That part, that voice will always come up and say, yes, I'm there to help her. So then we go to that survival brain that sabotages us. We give it the kudos for having a positive intent. And oftentimes a survival brain came in around 4, 5, 6, 7 years of age when we didn't have many options. For example, for me, it was, I can survive all by myself. I'm an independent person. I don't need mom's love. I can do this on my own. So that survival brain, of course, wants to repeat that. So how do I live my life? I look for people in my life and situations where I can repeat my survival brain. Because why? I know I can survive it. But can I survive something better out there? Oh, my survival brain goes, no. We don't know about that.
Yeah.
So once we are aware of it, we acknowledge it, we acknowledge the positive intent, then we can start to deal with it. Would you like to upgrade your skills to help Brandi not only just survive, but thrive?
Thrive, yeah.
Sometimes it'll say, no, I'm not willing to go there. We'll say, okay, thank you so much for that information. And then we can look for other ways to deal. But oftentimes they'll say, sure, I'll upgrade. How has your work been now that Brandi's an adult? How effective have you been? Not so much. Okay. Would you like to improve your skill level? And then we can go from there. So what you mentioned about not just shutting down your emotions, but how you react to them is so important, that if we can look at them as a positive contribution, but may not be appropriate in this context, we can negotiate with them. We can let them come. We can feel them and let them go.
And do you think that, because what I try to do as a competitive golfer and as somebody who is in the financial services industry, I'm really more of a coach when it comes to money.
Mm-hmm.
I listen 98% of the time, and 2% of the time I'm saying, well, you might want to think about harvesting some gains. That's really the only thing that I say. I have some people that have 401ks that have one stock in them, and they've done pretty damn good.
Yep.
And my response is, you might just want to harvest some of those gains. So
I'll interrupt you briefly. I had a client who husband passed away, IBM, lifelong IBMer. She had like $4 million in IBM stock. And I said, well, maybe you could consider diversifying. Oh, no, whatever. So I said, okay, let's say tomorrow that your brokerage firm called you and said, Mrs. X, we made a big mistake. We got a wrong account. We accidentally sold all your IBM. There's $4 million in cash. Now, we'll be happy to put it back in, correct the mistake and put it back into IBM if you want. You have $4 million of cash here. What would you like? And then I say, would you invest it all in IBM? Oh, no, of course not. Yeah. But that's the decision we make, that, that we tend to just not want to make any decision, especially as our assets grow.
You just want to hold what you got.
Yep.
Well, now I lost my train of thought on what I was going to say.
Yeah, I interrupted you.
It's all right. No. On the golf course, do you think, and this has everything to do with money as well, do you think that people become numb to kind of the sabotaging? Do you think the sabotaging still happens after you've gotten over the stress and the distress and the emotion? Do you think it still happens, but we just still deal with it better?
Oh, yeah, of course we deal with it better. But if I look at my own life, lately I've been really paying attention to the quality of my thoughts.
Okay.
And I still have these self-sabotaging thoughts. So here I am, I'm 76 years old. I'm a therapist. I work with people around this, and they're still there. So especially for traders, active traders, they say, well, can I get the master trader's mindset? And I says, well, as soon as you do that, you're going to be trading bigger, you're going to have more capital, and there's more things going to be triggered. It's a never-ending process. So if we In fact, there's a phrase that my NLP teacher used. To see if I can bring it back. Let's treat all the decisions and behaviors we made in the past as inevitable. Let's treat the decisions and behaviors in the futures as if we had choices on everything. So what we do is we reduce the blame and shame from the past, and then we look to the future as if we have choices in everything we do.
Do you, and this is what I've done in my study of my own issues that I have, my own therapy, my own manifestation, meditation, mindfulness, is every single solitary thing that I have ever done in my life, like the smallest, inconsequential things that I have done, got me right here in this chair talking to you. And when I think about regret or remorse, or maybe I shouldn't have done that kind of a thing, I literally like take an eraser in my head, in my thought process, and I just erase that thought because I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be married 22 years on Sunday. I wouldn't have experienced everything that I've experienced in my life. I've probably led 3 different lifetimes. I've had incredible adventures. And absolutely no regrets. And that's kind of one of the things that, I write about every morning in my journal, is that I want absolutely no regrets. I want to give it all and do it all. And I said to Claudia the other day, I was in the kitchen and I was feeling the pressure, and I turned around and she's sitting on the couch, and I said, tell me I can do it all. I just have to do it one at a time. And she, said that back to me so I could hear it from another voice. Because I do, I take on a lot, and that's usually been my downfall when it gets all, bajiggity in my head and it gets all disorganized, but I've been pretty organized thus far. And and here's another insight on me. We had lunch earlier, and she asked me, she says, so, you're all over social media, and we call it the shock and awe social media campaign of Brandi Jo for May. So I'm all over social media. I'm posting 10 times a day. I'm recording 2 podcast interviews a day, releasing 1 a day, doing my money minutes, writing a blog. I'm guest on other podcasts.
Oh my gosh.
Building out a funnel. I've got a 3-phase funnel right now where people learn about infinite banking. And it is, very simple. Watch a video. What else do you want to know? Here we go. And then building out a retirement funnel. And she asked me, she says, I know you're doing all this, but how's the income coming along? And, I can take that one of 2 ways. I can be defensive about it, or I can say it will come, because all of this, because I'm literally giving away. I told somebody the other day that I'm giving away 96% of everything that I know. And I'm keeping 4% to myself for those people that want to work with me one-on-one. And I know it'll come, because it's come before. I mean, I've done it before, and I'll just do it again. So, your book has had this is the first edition, or you published one prior, and then this is kind of the redo, or this is the first edition? This is the first edition. I've written some booklets for my clients for inside my own training, but this is the first book released to the public. Okay. And like, how many people are you working with right now? And do you work with them one-on-one? Yeah, I have a number of stages. One is I do some free workshops every now and then, free webinars. I have a blog with just a ton of stuff on it. I do group work. I just finished a group called Healing the Political Divide, and finished another group on our attitudes towards wealth and money. And I'm going to Europe, so those are on pause.
But I also have private clients, and I usually don't have more than a dozen at a time. And the private clients then have access to everything else. And what I focus on is what are the drivers of behavior. I mean, typically a coach will say, use more willpower, be more disciplined.
Yeah.
But we look at saying, okay, how can we step in to a state, a context, and behaviors that just feel better? Because if we're setting up discipline and willpower, we're setting up internal stress. So what I do is I create, for example, a guided visualization customized to my clients, and we step into what just feels better and is a higher level self and gives us agency. So if they can do that for a moment, we can do it for an hour, for a day, for a year. So my job is to step into that state and then continually expand it in our lives.
Can you talk a little bit more about the visualization?
Sure.
They're all unique to your clientele. Can you give us an example?
Yeah. For example, if we're looking at a trader, for example, or let's say a hedge fund manager. Okay, I want you to design a master investor's house. What would that be like? And some will be in a valley, near an ocean, in the mountains. Everyone has a different place. Some of it's a log, some of it's very modern, whatever it is. Let's design it. Tell me about the colors. How big is it? How close is it to this? And so we just create this visual. That is the master investor or trader's house. Now, I want you to approach up the driveway and start approaching the house. And then I'll say, physiologically, notice what you're feeling, how you're breathing, how your muscles. So as you approach this house, what happens is they are now about to step into their future. But we then can see, and most of the time it's represented physiologically. Oh, what's going on? I got a voice. My dad is saying that wealthy people are assholes. So, so then we'll have them walk up, touch the door handle, and then look around and look at all the people in their lives. And they're all crowded. Imagine them all crowded in the driveway. Who's cheering you on? Oh, my mom's cheering me on, or my friends are. Ooh, Peter, no. He says if I go into this house and have this success, that we're done. So we get all the objections, we go back, we deal with them till they're ready to turn that handle. And when they turn that handle, how does it feel to step in? What is your physiology? What are your emotions? And we go through the house. So then we go back and we talk to the people in our community. You know, because our evolutionarily speaking, our survival mechanism is connected to our tribe. And so just to have them somehow magically step out of that whole context into being successful, yeah, it's not going to work. That survival mechanism is going to suck them right back.
Yeah.
So we go through the entire process until and the goal here is to have it feel better. Oh, this feels better. Now, once we get to that point, I know we can repeat it. So rather than willpower and discipline, I look for a context and invite them to just feel better about it.
And somehow that alleviates the bondage or the blockage that they have with what they're trying to create with the money that they're trying to make.
Yes, you know, if we look at their neurology, you know, if we look at neural circuits that connect, we have all these old patterns. Like driving a car, you don't have to think about it. Just boom, you can go down the freeway and have a conversation. Or our beliefs about money or success or identity, they're all locked in. So we're creating a whole new context of success here. And when we do that, those neural connections aren't quite made yet. But if we can do it in our imagination, and as an aside, our brain will not take us to a place that isn't safe. It won't let us do that. So we need to create a context, a visual, a place where we are safe. And as soon as they are safe in their master trader's house or the master entrepreneur's house, we've created some initial neural connections. Now, with repetition in the real world, with practice and exercises, those neural connections now become more and more connected, and then they overwhelm the old ones that didn't serve us.
That's right. So, funny you should say that. I'm sitting here thinking about neural paths and how there's a neural path that lights up or whatever that I have with money, that I have with golf, that I have with my family, my wife, my tribe. And if you want to create a new one, you just have to keep thinking and pondering and doing the repetitions of the visualization. Those old neural patterns, they dim, they just don't go away. And that's why I think some of them will spark every
Yes.
and it's like, I haven't dealt with that in years. Why is that doing that? Because it's always there. I'm one of these people that believes we're all made with all the knowledge in the world in our brains, and it's what somehow we either see or that we experience during that first consciousness and that first development into our brainstem. And you mentioned it earlier, 4, 5, and 6. I can't remember what this process was, but I'm out there when it comes to things. And I went to this lady, and she's waving these cards in front of me, and she's pushing on my arms and my hands, trying to feel the resistance about the questions that she's asking me. So she's trying to feel the energy. And she believes, and she's right over here on Funston, she got the message or the energy or the communication that something happened to me when I was 6 that kind of took me in, that did something and interrupted or blocked something with my potential or whatever. And I've asked, I think at the time my dad was still alive, I asked him, he was like, I don't know. And I asked my mother. I'm an only child, so that's the only 2 people I can really ask. But it's funny that you said that 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, oftentimes we'll find that survival mechanism was created when children didn't have many options. And as at that age, you're not aware of how the world works, and you tend to blame yourself. So you tend to get, especially if there's trauma, you tend to focus around that trauma and survive. And 4, 5, and 6 seems to be an age that keeps coming up. So glad you brought that up.
Yeah, interesting. Well, Rich, this has been very enlightening. I feel like I've been sitting on the couch with you. Yeah, learned a lot. I'm going to listen to the book today because it's about to start pouring down rain. There's not going to be a lot of golf in my afternoon.
Okay.
Well, why don't we tell everybody where they can pick up the book? Tell them the website again where they can pick up their resources that you're very gracious to give us.
Yeah, conversations.money/Brandi, Brandi. And there you can see where the book is. It's sold on Kindles, audio, paperback, hardback, almost everywhere. And you can get it there. And then you can, if you go to the Brandi website, then you can get the coupon for the free online course that takes you through the book with the expanded exercises.
Excellent. Rich, thank you so much. I want you to come back.
I will.
How does once a quarter sound?
Sounds great. May I give you an appreciation?
Please.
For just allowing a conversation just to grow and develop naturally. And it just felt I was at home with you across the kitchen table with a cup of coffee. And it felt so comfortable. So thank you.
Good. I'm glad. In my, where we found each other on Podmatch, that's what I wanted to convey to people, that it's, super loose, conversational, just let it happen as it goes. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
No problem. I look forward to seeing you again.
Absolutely. You have fun in Europe.
I will.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Brandi Jo Show. You can find out more on her website, BrandiJoNewman.com.